Guys, good morning from wherever it is that you are listening to the sound of my voice. This is Milan 98.3 FM, the sound of Lagos. Happy New Year. Happy New Year to everyone. And 2023 was quite an interesting ride. If you joined the conversation yesterday on Political Roundtable, it was quite an interesting one where we asked what was it for you, or which of the political which political moment stood out for you in the year 2023? Well, for me, I think it has to be, the lot actually. I mean, the emergence of the obedience, the emergence of the G5, the election the winners, the election itself, the announcement on May 29. There's just a lot that happened in 2023. The new Naira redesign, very huge inconvenience to a lot of Nigerians. But 2024 is pregnant with a lot of hope. It's pregnant with a lot of yes, I think we'll just use that word hope, that things are going to get better. In case you tuned into Milan 98.3 FM this morning, we were able to, broadcast live the president's speech for the year 2023. It was quite an interesting one. As we move on in trends in the papers, we'll get to discuss, high points from that particular speech. My name is Omobola Sandra. You're listening to the Morning Express on Milan 98.3 FM. And this segment is Trends in the Papers. We'll be looking through major trending stories on the front pages of our dailies. But of course, before we do just that, it's only important that we bring you up to speed as regards stories that trended over the weekend, as we don't have trends in the papers on Saturday and Sunday. Well, let's bring you up to speed. What were the major stories from over the weekend? So I'll start with Saturday. I have here, I'll sustain Akeredolu's legacies, says Aiyedatiwa, and that was taken from Nigerian Tribune. Aiyedatiwa visits Tinubu, gets advice to unify state, also from Nigerian Tribune. Amidst economic challenges, National Assembly increases the own budget by over 100 billion. And that was taken from Premium Times. This is an interesting one, particularly for me, because I know it's something that Fuad had always mentioned, that the signing of the appropriation bill, the budget for 2024, is not over yet, because there's still some increase that still needs to be done. I asked him a question: what do you mean increase, where we're supposed to be looking at cutting down and slimming down things? And he said no, there's something that he's still waiting for. Well, we'll discuss further, of course, on the show. Well, moving on, we also have trending on Saturday. INEC promotes 5,196 staff nationwide. That was taken also from Nigerian Tribune. Senate passes 2024 budget. Okay, that was taken from Premium Times. The National Assembly has passed 28.7 trillion naira 2024 budget. That was taken from Vanguard. Reps propose jail term for employers owing salary. I hope this includes they themselves. Well, that's the story that we have here. That was taken from The Punch. Anyways, the reps propose jail term for employers owing salary. Court restrains Ayahu from parading self as PDP National Secretary. That was taken from The Sun. And finally, for Saturday, Plateau Massacre. Senate summoned heads of military, security, intelligence agencies. And that was taken from This Day. Moving on to Sunday, we have Speaker of 4-member Rivers Assembly faction resigns. That's Iyie Adesin. Thank you very much.
He's resigned there.
He has resigned. And that was taken from Premium Times. And we also have Justin, Port Harcourt refinery steel test running. And that's coming from NNPC, and that was taken from Vanguard. Anambra 2025, Soludo faces fierce political war. That's taken from The Sun. Speaker loyal to Fubara resigns from Rivers. We've taken that. National Assembly jacks up 2024 budget by 1.2 trillion naira. That's taken from Nigerian Tribune. 2024 budget. Priorities: welfare, security of Nigerians. Labour Party prioritize welfare, security of Nigerians. Labour Party tells federal government. That was taken from The Nation newspaper. And this report was compiled by Kelvin Wafili. So those were the major trending stories from over the weekend. Now let's move on to the major stories for today. Of course, starting off with the presidential speech that was also broadcast live right here from Milan 98.3 FM. But before then, good morning, Fuhad Sahid. He has joined me in the studio, and Happy New Year.
Yes, good morning, Sandra. Happy New Year to you. Happy New Year to all our listeners. It's a brand new year, 2024, and we can only hope for the best.
You slept into the
yeah, of course, yes. We can only hope for the best. And I must say that a lot of things are already happening. So I just think that it's a carryover of a lot of the things we witnessed in 2023. We are just hoping for, a better time, a better year.
Well, I know someone, my pastor will always say that you can't really say Happy New Year until you've experienced something new.
And happy too.
And exactly about the year. So if you've not experienced something new, if it's still same old for you, well, maybe you need to do something different to, just keep up with what's going on. It's a new week, it's a new month, it's a new year. And that's a big one today, the 1st of January 2024. Happy New Year to all our listeners. You're welcome to 2024. We have a lot of new programs lined up, but then as the week goes on, we're going to be introducing them just one after the other, so you can, stay up to speed as regards the current happenings in Nigeria and from around the world. Now, Fuhad, I'm sure you listened to the president's speech this morning.
Yes, sir.
I don't know. I have a lot to say,
yes.
But I'm not, I'm just going to leave it to you to bring out. I'll try to bring out the points, the high points from the
speech of the president.
The president. So then we can look at should we look forward to something different this year, or is it just the same rhetorics? Because we have here, I'm aware. I am not oblivious. I heard I'm not oblivious. I heard I'm aware. I hear the groans of Nigerians. I just say, okay, he knows. But what are the things that he plans to do, based on this information that he knows? It says here, dear compatriots, take this from me. The time may be rough and tough. However, our spirits must remain unbowed because tough times never last. We are made for this period. He went further to say that the socio-economic challenges of today should energize and rekindle our love and faith in the promise of Nigeria. And our situation should make us resolve that this new year 2024, each and every one of us will commit to be better citizens. He said silently they've worked to free captive from abductors. They've laid the groundwork for economic recovery. There are some economic recovery plans within the last 7 months. And there's also the high point of to ensure constant food supply, security and affordability. He said we will step up our plan to cultivate 500,000 hectares of farmlands across the country. He said we launched the dry season farming with 120,000 hectares. In this new year, we'll race against time. He also said, I'll fight every obstacle that impedes business competitiveness in Nigeria, and I'll not hesitate to remove any clog hindering our path. He also went further. In my 2024 budget presentation, I listed my administration 8 priority areas, which is national defense and internal security, job creation, macroeconomic stability, investment environment optimization, human capital development, poverty reduction, and social security. So whether or not the 2024 budget reflects all of this, that's another conversation for another day. But then what's your own take from the president's speech this morning?
Well, Sandra, a message of hope, basically renewed hope, a message of renewed hope, which has been the message of the president even before he was sworn in as president. These are familiar tunes. These are things we're used to. It's the same rhetoric of hope. Well, it's expected that, of course, the president will continue to assure Nigerians that he's on top of the situation, that he understands their pain, he feels their pains, and he understands that things are actually tough. He was recently on Friday, I think last Friday was at the Central Mosque here, and I think Lagosians didn't mix words in telling him what they're feeling at this time. Yes, there were people who told him to his face. I hope he was looking at them that things are not looking too good. Being power, you saw Lagosians in the market telling him that. That was a different scenario from when you say Jagaban, but now, right there in the market, people told him that, look, by being power.
From this speech now, from what we have heard this morning, is it reflective of what he witnessed on Saturday?
You see, Sandra,
does it show the president's resolve to actually do something?
From 1999 till date, Sandra, I've listened to nothing less than maybe about 100 speeches from different presidents defending on the situation of things. Independence Day broadcast, New Year broadcast, COVID broadcast, emergency broadcast, NSAS broadcast, different kinds of broadcasts depending on what has happened and why the president needed to address the nation. And it's the same similar pattern of promises. We're going to do this, we're on top of this situation, we're addressing this. I think the job of this current president is well cut out for him. There are quick wins that he can look at. I've always said it. He came in, I must say, on the backdrop of 8 years of dismal performance from the former president, Muhammadu Buhari. There's no mincing words about that. I have to say that, look, yes, they're of the same party, but he came in on the backdrop of what we can call complete lackluster performance, lack of complete understanding of how to run a nation, and very dismal performance from the former president. But if you ask me, what are the quick wins? What are the low-hanging fruits that he can quickly just tap into? I must say that the first thing would be for him to look at the issue of insecurity. He needs to do something completely different, because he's talking about cultivating 500 hectares of land. He's talking about food security, 500,000 hectares of land, blah, 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 none of that. Where will that happen with the level of insecurity we have in the country? So he needs to look at the issue of insecurity. He needs to take bold steps, decisive steps about insecurity. I saw the Minister of State for Defense, Matawalle, in Plateau State yesterday. And if you look at the conversation between him and the governor, you understand that, look, there's still a whole lot to do, when it comes to bringing peace to the north central part of the country and indeed other parts of the country too. So I think the first thing he needs to do is to even just reduce this number of killings, because again, the numbers are climbing, the numbers are rising for him. If you take a list of the number of Nigerians that have been killed from 1999, from May 29 when he was running till date, it's not a good number.
Well, Fuad, I'm also aware. I know that you have thoroughly gone through the budget, the national budget. You have gone back to back, page to page, ministry by ministry, agency by agency. Does anything there tell you that 2024 is pregnant with a lot of hopeful initiatives from this federal government?
At all, nothing, completely nothing different. Again, we've done a review. The budget has now been passed. About 1 trillion has been added to it. 1.7 trillion has been added to it, so it's been jacked up again. And if you look at some of the appropriations, Sandra, again, we try to count the cost, we try to educate Nigerians, so that again we don't just live on false hopes and false promises. Let us hold on to something very tangible. There was something the Premium Times reported yesterday, Sandra. Let me just dig it out, as to what is actually in the budget. I'm going to bring that up very fast so that Nigerians understand why we're saying that. Look, don't just there's a report in the Premium Times yesterday that said 2024 budget, Nigerian government's curious allocation of 1.2 billion for purchase of office building for agric agency. So in trying to count the cost and dissect the past budget, they focus on this particular report. 2024 budget, Nigerian government's curious allocation of 1.2 billion for purchase of office building for agric agency. Now I had to pick a part of that story, and they said that, look, the Nigerian government has allocated the sum of 1.2 billion of the 2024 proposed budget for the purchase of office buildings for the newly created National Agricultural Development Fund. So something was created newly. It's called the Nigerian Agricultural Development Fund, and in the 2024 budget as passed, 1.2 billion was allocated for the purchase of office building. Now listen, Sandra.
Yes.
The government has also allocated the sum of 70 million for the purchase of office furniture, partitioning, and fittings for the agency. You understand? So the government has also allocated the sum of
for the same agric agency
for the 1.2 billion to buy the building, 70 million for the purchase of office furniture, partition, and fittings for the agency. Of a total of around 2.5 billion allocated to the agency in the budget, 27.5 million is earmarked for its office rent, while 450 million is budgeted for the purchase of operational vehicles for the agency. Just imagine, 450 million is budgeted for the purchase agency. Of. It's a newly look. The agency look at the name of the agency, the National Agricultural Development Fund, a special fund to develop agriculture. The entire thing that was allocated to this agency is 102.5 billion. This is an agency that is supposed to work very hard for food sufficiency in the country, and look at the spending pattern. So in that same money, 1.2 billion, you buy an office. I'm sorry, these are guys that could just look for a space, maybe in the Ministry of Agric.
That's why I'm saying that
it's just an agency.
It's an agency newly created. Why do they have to
buy buildings? And then look at the spending pattern. 450 million is budgeted for the purchase of operational vehicles for the agency. So more than 20% of the money already bought for spent recklessly.
I'm surprised you haven't even mentioned the fact that the Senate actually added something to their.
It's always that's always the ritual. It's a yearly ritual. Well, they will always add to their own budget. So what I'm trying to say is that look, if you go through the budget page by page, figure for figure, you understand that look, it's a budget that just on the surface you think, oh, it's a budget that should ordinarily renew the opus sign. But if you go into the details, the devil is in the details, Sandra, and that's what the Premium Times has just done with just one agency. It is the same spending pattern across agencies, ministries, parastatals. We are buying vehicles, we are paying for offices, we are renovating buildings. So it is the same reckless spending pattern in the budget 2024. So unfortunately, we are going to borrow to spend this nonsense.
So there is nothing in the budget that reflects the pains of Nigerians and how to, because now I have on the front page of the Guardian newspaper the major headline here: Nigerians hopeful amid failed promises on lingering problems. We have a lot of lingering problems, and that's why I remember quite clearly at Milan 98.3 FM during the 2023 general elections, we were so intent on issue-based conversation, because there's nobody that is aspiring to be a president or a governor or anything or any position can say that they are not aware of the problems that we have.
How committed are they to solving the problem?
We have energy situation, the refinery situation. In the speech this morning, the president only mentioned that in 2024 we are taking a step further. What's that step that's taking?
It's not defined.
Very ambiguous. We don't know. And then he said, and we're also hopeful that Dangote refinery will also kick off this. Dangote refinery is still struggling to
get a supply crude. Of crude.
But let's move. We have here energy. 2023 was a watershed moment in the energy sectors, but stakeholders look forward to consolidation of long-awaited reforms. Refinery. Are the Moribund refinery eventually going to start production in 2024?
We've told you, Sandra, and people can take a bet on that. I think Adiola Yusuf was here. We also had an energy expert who told us that look, if they are saying, Sandra, again, nobody is saying that we don't have steps towards getting the refineries to work. But what are the steps being taken in a way that can assure or get us to getting them work in 2024? That's a big question. Sandra, Port Harcourt refinery has two parts. There's 60,000 barrels per day and there's 150,000 barrels per day. The one that has even been touched, where mechanical work has been done, which is 70% of the work, is this old refinery of 60,000 barrels per day.
Fuad, it's a long one, and I had this question, but I'm so glad that the Guardian
has highlighted it properly.
It as well. It says here, what difference will Moribund refineries make when they start production? And then this is my own question now that I also agree with the Guardian. What happens if Dangote and other refineries continue to struggle for stocks?
Look, Sandra, Dangote refinery was commissioned in May this year.
Yes.
And this is December. Oh, sorry, this is January. Sorry. And as at the last count, he has only been able to get about 3 million barrels.
3 million.
Yeah,
and he needs 6 million every day.
No, he needs 650,000 every day. No, but to start fully,
he needs.
Yeah, I'm coming. He needs the capacity of that refinery is 650,000 barrels per day
for refining.
But what he needs to kick off fully is about 6 million barrels of crude oil. Now he's been getting it in tranches. So it tells you that, look, even the first thing the Dangote refinery people told us was that, look, they were going to import crude. That in itself is to tell you that they are not sure that they can get local supply. You understand? They are not completely sure. And it's clear, Sandra, there are borrowings that we have done, and what we have used, what we've promised to use to pay is crude. That those ones are there. So we have to meet up with our debt obligations with crude. There's also the issue of oil theft, Sandra, that we have not been able to deal with. You understand? Then there's also the problem of our quota in OPEC. We have still not been able to meet our daily quota in OPEC. We have about 1.8 million barrels per day quota. What we are doing now is about 1.1, 1.2 barrels per day. You understand what I'm saying? So if you look at all of those problems, now if you have the Dangote refinery, which is supposed to do 650,000 barrels per day, you have the Port Harcourt refinery, which is supposed to do about 221 barrels per day, and then of course the entire refinery, 4 refineries are supposed to do 445,000 barrels per day. If you add the 445,000 to 650,000, where will the crude supply come from? Can we guarantee that we can produce enough, one, to meet our OPEC quota, two, to ensure our debt obligations through crude swap that we've entered into, because we've gotten some monies that we are going to use crude to pay, and then can we now ensure we produce enough to supply our local refinery? So you see, the rhetoric, the conversation around, the refineries will work, yes, it's good, but what about supply to those refineries? Adeola Yusuf was explaining that even the Port Harcourt refinery, most of the pipelines that are supposed to feed the refinery are still in a state of disrepair. So it's a long walk to getting these refineries to work, and these ideas of 2024, that's why a lot of the experts have said that, look, before we begin to talk about even Port Harcourt refinery running fully, we may be looking at 2025, 2026.
Well, speaking of 2025, 2026, 2023 was the beginning of a long era of a free fall of the naira. Is 2024 going to be the year of the naira? Because naira has seen the worst.
Sandra,
what about our currency? Let's have that conversation.
Look, Sandra, things happen very fast. I remember one of my brothers bought a car, a Nigerian used car, I think around April this year, for 1.6. Last year, sorry, 2023. We're going to get used to the new year. And he bought it for 1.6 million naira, a Toyota Camry. Sandra, the same car, because of the forex crisis, you're going to get it for nothing less than 3.5 million naira. That's how bad things have been in just a space of 8 months. Sandra, before May 29, what was the value of $1 to a naira? It was around maybe 600, 657. But now we're talking about 1,200, 1,250. The pounds have gone gaga. That one is
no, the pounds is out of this world. The pounds is about 1.5.
He's just doing his own thing. So the question is, can we get back to normal? Yesterday, by Sarkozy was saying it. We talked about unifying the forex market. Sandra, we still have two windows. There's still the black and the official. And as long as the margin still exists, you can't say that in truth, in policy, as a policy statement, yes, the government has unified. But in reality, Sandra, I traveled recently. I still have to go to the black market to get my dollars. Whereas in the high and in window, you can't get anything. And the margin is still there. If you look at the official rate today, Sandra, it's about naira and something naira to $1. But go to the black market, you're going to buy at 1,200 or 1,250. That margin shows you that there are two markets. You have not been able to unify the market properly. Now, can the naira strengthen itself against the dollar? It's not going to be by mere words, Sandra, by rhetorics, by just saying it. We have to walk the talk. We have to do the hard work. So the question we should ask ourselves is, where do we get dollars? What is our major earning when it comes to forex? What are we doing to earn forex? What are we doing to balance our trade? We are not producing anything practically, Sandra. So where is that going to come from?
There's a lot to also talk about. Now I'm going to take us to manufacturing as well. What should the government do to halt the gale of closure of manufacturing companies? I didn't really get much as regards that particular situation. It was not touched. And the fact that even like our trade ministry, our trade union ministry, like no one is saying anything as regards the fact that multinationals are leaving the country almost on a yearly basis. All right, 15 multinationals have left the country in 2 years. That's what we had the conversation last year. So there was nothing as well in this speech that actually captured that. But so what should the government do to hold
Sandra, over the weekend there was a report that the Association of small scale business owners said in the last 3 years 10 million small scale businesses closed down in the country. 10 million small scale businesses had to shut down in the last 3 years in the country. Now, the Manufacturing Association of Nigeria has always said that, look, if we don't quickly address this forest crisis, a lot of jobs will be lost because more manufacturers will have to close down. And it's so bad, Sandra, because again, the purchasing power of Nigerians have reduced to the point where you now have products getting so expensive to the point that Nigerians are not able to buy. So even when manufacturers struggle to produce, Sandra, it takes too long on the shelf. Nobody's buying. So they are not making profits, they are making losses, they have to shut down some of their plants and factories. So again, that's why I said the president has to now go beyond all of these beautiful speeches, talks, rhetorics, I'm aware. It has to be practical. And I was hoping that, for example, the 2024 budget would give us that glimmer of hope. And how do you get to understand that the government is committed to something like revamping the manufacturing sector, addressing critical areas like insecurity and all of that, education, health? It has to be in the spending pattern. But like I said, the devil is in the detail. If you check the budget and you go into critical details of the budget, you understand that it's just mere rhetoric. The commitment is not there to fixing those things. So again, I think the manufacturing sector will struggle again in 2024. There's the problem of power, which we have not been able to resolve. The power sector, although in the speech of the president this morning he mentioned the Siemens deal, he said the German chancellor at the COP28 they met and he committed to the deal and all of that. But that's a deal that has been there for years. Why is it that it's more promises?
Since 2018
the deal has been there. It's been
conversation
around the Siemens deal and all of that. So like I said, he said we should not pity him. He has a lot of work to do. But I actually also think, just like the former governor of Ekiti State told him recently, Dr. Káyọ̀dé, I think the president should purge himself a bit of sycophants around him. I think he needs to rework the people around him. He needs to find a way to listen to people on the other side of the divide, rather than people who are, because the people in government, if you look at some of the things they say, we see some of their foot soldiers on social media. And if you see the kinds of things they post, I think these are not people that can really tell the president the real truth. Because what they try to paint, the picture they try to paint is that, all your decisions are so perfect, everything. Look at what the governor of Enugu State told him yesterday. That, the what's it called? The removal of subsidy and the unification of the forex market has brought in more FDIs to Enugu State. And I'm like, is that not high service?
Well, I think Don Peters is from Enugu State. Maybe you can tell us the FDIs
that have come
to
and to have tied the FDIs
in 8 months. I mean, that's 7 months.
Look, if he says, maybe there's something that has been done in Enugu State for FDIs to have come in, but it's for him to have tied it to the two policies. And I'm sorry, you may just discover that those are the kind of things people around the president are telling him.
Alright, you're listening to Mainland 98.3 FM. This is Trends in the Papers, and we're just, having a breakdown of the president's speech and also juxtaposing it against the major headline on the front page of The Guardian. Nigerians hopeful amid failed promises on lingering problems. We've been able to touch energy, refinery, currency, manufacturing. There's also labor. Except the federal government changes its handling of labor demands, the carryover industrial action of last year could snowball into a bigger crisis this year and turn out to be the Achilles heel of the ongoing economic reform.
They are struggling to pay the wage award, Sandra. The 35,000 wage award. The last time federal government workers got it was in September.
29th.
And the last
on Friday.
No, that was salary. We're talking about wage award, the 35,000.
They said they will pay with December salary.
No, they didn't pay. We said it yesterday on the show, political roundtable. What they've paid the December salary, but they are now promising that they are going to pay the wage award as soon as possible.
So
and the
last
time federal government workers got the wage award was in September. October, November, December is still being owed. But of course, they promise that they're going to pay as soon as possible. So if even a little thing as wage award if the government is still not committing to it completely. You should know that I'm sure the government labor relations is not going to be too good in 2024.
Well, let's now move on to budgets. That's also a major headline on the front page of all of the papers this morning. The 2024 budget has been raised by 1.2 trillion naira. So our budget now stands at 28.7 trillion naira. That's 2024 budget. I have here why 2024 budget was increased by 1.2, and I also have it. So I'm going to put both together. Despite budget surge, poor funding still awaits education in 2024. So the highs and the lows of our 2024 budget, the increase, was it necessary? Is it properly, Chairman House of Representatives Committee has explained, that's Abubakar Kabir Bichi, has explained why the 2024 budget was increased by 1.2 trillion. He said the decision was informed by the pledge of government-owned enterprises to increase their revenue in the fiscal year. So we're working with, don't worry, we're going to make more money.
To add more money to the budget.
Just add more money to the budget.
Again, Sarah, we said that budget is just anticipated appropriation.
So this is anticipated revenue.
Yeah, now, of course, because look, budget is about, this is what we're going to make. But it's not even.
But what are we spending it on? So
that is the question. So look, we can raise the budget by additional 10 trillion. It's not a problem. You understand what I'm saying? We can move it from 28 to 40 trillion. But the question is, what are we spending the monies on? I just gave you just one new agency. You did about 100 billion to that agency to develop agricultural fund. And Sandra, you're already buying buildings. You're already budgeting about 500 million to buy operational vehicles. You don't understand what I'm saying. And that's what you get in every part of the budget. Agencies, parastatals, ministries. It is the same spending pattern across board. And that worries me, looking at the appropriation. So now agencies are promised that they're going to make money. Okay, we now make the money, we spend it recklessly again.
Well, reviews of the proposed 2024 education budgets and how President Bola Tinubu failed to meet the 26% benchmark of the United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Educators UNESCO for developing countries to turn the corner of dysfunctional school system. So amid the increase in allocation to education by the federal government, the country has again failed to meet the global benchmark of 26% of the national budget to fund the sector. That's the standard, or that's supposed
expected standard.
Yes. A further breakdown has indicated that 1.2 trillion naira was budgeted for the Federal Ministry of Education and its agencies, while TED Fund will receive 700 billion, and UBEC, that's Universal Basic Education Commission, will get 251 billion. Investigation also shows that TED Fund allocation represents 118% increase compared to the intervention agency received in the outgoing year. But then it's looking at this, there's a quote here: we at the Ministry of Education, like any other sector, are desirous of having more money allocated to us so that we can carry out the presidential mandate of 25%. But that is not to say that we'll subject ourselves to an unempirical recommendation of UNESCO. We should be working within the 25% set by the president and not the UN, because their prescription lacks logic. So it's not doable. What they're saying, what the international bodies are saying, it's not doable. It's unempirical. That's what they're saying here.
Well, if you look at what we've appropriated in budgets, less than 5% for education, and the reality is that I don't think we're making these things our priority. I don't think, for example, education, the health sector, is a priority to the government. If it's a priority, there's no reason why we can't even budget about 30% of our budget to funding education. Because look, Sandra, when you talk about nations that are risen from being underdeveloped to developed, there's a deliberate effort to work within the education sector to ensure that, look, they are able to produce inventors, they are able to produce technicians. You understand? Because you can't talk about industrialization without the manpower. Sandra, a lot of the equipment that our manufacturers are using, even in the media, we still have to import. You understand what I'm saying? Yes. So if you look at even the field of engineering, the technical areas of our education, what is the level of investment in those areas? What have we been able to do in those areas? This is the era where things are moving very fast. And the only way to tag along, to catch up with the way things are moving, is to invest heavily in education, train your people, steal technology, bring it down home, and then get people to also invent here. But again, I think we're going to get to this rhetoric of the government cannot solely fund education. Oh, we don't have enough money to give free education to people. Of course, the government is already mooting the idea that the idea of free education at tertiary level cannot be sustained, and that people now have to pay, and all of those kind of things. So UNESCO can say whatever I want to say, but I think that as a people, we have to decide what our priorities are. And from this budget, I don't think the government has made education a priority, and that's what it is.
Well, let's move on now to Vanguard newspaper. Still on this conversation as regards the budget, the major headline on the front page of the Guardian: NLC, NECA, Labour Party, others fire National Assembly for raising the 2024 budget by 1.2 trillion naira. And we have here why we increased budget to 28.7. That's coming from Speaker Tajuddin Abbas. Says Nigeria set for profound change in budget implementation. It will stoke inflation and drive up budget deficit, says David Adori.
Definitely.
It will put more pressure on the currency. That's Nnamdi Nwezu. Jerking up of 2024 budget uncharitable and uncalled for. And that's coming from Kako. So the story is on page 5 of Vanguard, and let's just quickly run through major stakeholders in the polity, including the NLC, NECA, Labour Party, among others, were up in arms yesterday as regards the jerking up of the budget by 1.2 trillion naira. All right, we have there's a lot of reactions on this, and the speaker, in trying to justify the reason why that increase was necessary, speaking with journalists after. The speaker assured that Nigerians should expect a notable difference in budget implementation once the president signs the bill into law. Also, according to him, after we received the budget proposal, we worked extra hours, no weekends, no breaks. Even during Christmas, we had to work to ensure that we're able to deliver on our promise to Mr. President that the budget will be passed before the end of the year.
Now, you think they are carrying cement, bags of cement?
They're sitting for 2 hours. It's a lot of work for.
Which work?
It's a lot of work.
Well, for them, it's a lot of work. Some of us who sit 8, 9, 10 hours working, so we worked extra hours.
It's saying, I continued, and I'm quoting, it's a lot of sacrifice. But then on the adjustments made by the president, the speaker noted that the lawmakers diligently scrutinized every aspect of the budget. And he said, and I quote, "We expect the budget to deliver." That's right. But then if we now look at the reaction, for example, the NLC president of NLC, Joe Ajaero, said the labor movement found it difficult to believe that a nation that is already borrowing to service its debt will allow itself to be dragged down the path of increasing its debt burden, which is what the extra budgetary provision
definitely we're going to
because it means more borrowing.
More borrowing.
The unfortunate news, that's what he called it, of the National Assembly's additional 1.2 trillion naira in the total budgetary expenditure is not just saddening but highly insensitive for a nation that is already hemorrhaging with its citizens suffering.
Sandra, we can do a budget of 50 trillion. It's not a problem. Honestly, we can actually work with a budget of 50 trillion. But what I'm saying is that, look, where are we putting these monies? That's the problem. And in counting the cost, I repeat again, the things I've seen in that budget, brings a lot of worry to my mind as to whether we are really committed to prudent spending and things that really matter.
You're not the only one that's worried. Nigeria Employers Consultative Association, they're also worried and noted that bogus allocation to items without direct correlation to the listed items was worrisome.
I just gave you one example. You buy vehicle, buy diesel, brochure. What's that?
So, and the DG of NECA, Adewale Smart Oyeride, said this development called to question the seriousness of this administration in pursuing the 7-point agenda.
The commitment. It's not just by mere words. We've said it. From the budget, I don't see any commitment.
Well, that's from NECA. Labour Party also picked holes in the allocations to the education and health sector. In a statement by the National Publicity Secretary, they said While without a doubt, the president-led APC administration has displayed a disdain for the security and welfare of Nigerians, and looking at the 2024 budget, we cannot fail to notice the undue attention given to the comfort of those in power to the detriment of the majority of citizens. It went further, and I quote, critical sectors of the economy such as education and health were given 1.2, 1.3 respectively. This is in a budget which has items such as 3 billion for a Senate car park.
You know, I told you the devil is in the detail. Thank God that the papers are bringing it. I've read the budget and I'm like, we are just joking.
3 billion for 3 billion naira for a Senate car park.
Senate for 3 billion.
1 billion for constitution review.
For constitution review.
78 billion for House of Reps and 36 billion for National Assembly office. 4 billion naira for National Assembly Recreation Center. Among other unbelievable allocations.
Embarrassingly unbelievable allocations. You get them in the budget. And that's the budget of renewed hope.
Oh wow! Well, that's that is aside.
You know, Sandra. I just highlighted this agency on our Greek, and we did that of the Office of the Chief of Staff too.
Yes.
That got about 21 point something billion, and you know what was the breakdown? 10 billion naira for full digitalization of the State House and other offices for 10 billion naira. 5 billion, Sandra, to renovate the official residence of the president in Dodon Barracks. Another 5 billion naira to renovate the official residence of the VP in Lagos. And then you add 70 million to buy computers and printers.
The president has been in Lagos for about 2 weeks or so.
Does he have somewhere he's been staying?
Has he been in an hotel? Where has he been staying?
Has he not been very comfortable receiving visitors and living
where he's staying?
So and these are, look, Sandra,
what about sacrifices on the part of the government?
So the government tells you, we understand your pains, we are reading the room, we feel your pain and all of that. Where is the sacrifice now? Because people will say, oh, these are things that, oh yes, you are going to monitor the spending. You are spending recklessly, that's what we're saying, on things that does not really have direct impact on the people, neither the economy.
Very quickly also, we have Center for Anti-Corruption and Open Leadership, CACO. The chairman, Mr. Debo Adiniro, has described the action, the jerking up of the appropriation bill, as uncharitable and unwarranted. And he said, and I quote, the problem with our Nigeria political leaders is that they are not realistic with their projection. Even the initial budget proposal is beyond our capacity. We are targeting borrowing to fund the budget. Nobody's talking about the effects on Nigeria's economy and the citizens. Our leaders did not make adequate efforts to retract all the trapped funds discovered in different parts of the world. They have not taken back the Ezani's loots, Abacha's loots, and all of that, putting that into consideration. So that's CACO. We also have here David Adori, Vice Chairman, High Cap Securities, said that bloating the expenditure would not only stoke inflationary pressure but also increase budget deficits.
No, Sandra, but how can a country that is saying there's no money, or Nigerians should endure the process?
Also does that the government-owned enterprises have promised high revenue in 2020.
So when we get high revenue, you use 4 billion to build a car park for the Senate. So when you now make the money, you spend it recklessly.
We spent a lot to buy those cars for them. They have to be properly parked.
Oh, those SUVs. Yeah, so you can't just park them anyhow.
Park them
anyhow. I see the logic now. Let's continue to spend like that. I know a week is still telling you I'm going to use 15 billion to build a befitting residence, for the vice president in Abuja. And so you look at all of these things, and in reality, Sandra, we're just joking. We're not ready.
More reactions to the jerking up. We also have here Nnamdi Nwizu, co-founder, Commission Partners. I need to see the full details of the increase alongside the rationale for it. However, from a monetary policy standpoint, more spending means more inflationary pressure and pressure
Sandra,
on the currency.
Spending on what? You see, we need to get it clear and right here.
You can do more spending.
But on what?
Okay, that's your stand.
That's my stand.
You don't mind more spending.
I say we can do 100 trillion naira budget. I don't mind. But what are we spending it on?
Car parks,
vehicles, printers, computers, renovations, full digitalization, 10 billion. Sandra, that's what we've been doing. And it's every agency, parastatal and ministry. You keep seeing that kind of spending. Even in the appropriation budget that we did in 2023, was that not the same thing that was captured? Vehicles, renovations in the same approach. So what we're going to do is that, Sandra, our budget performance index in 2024 will be the same thing, very dismal. And then I'm sure by the time we get to the middle of the year, we'll begin to talk about supplementary budgets.
There's nothing new that this administration is offering us.
Nothing on this budget. This one, nothing. It's the same of the old same.
On his part, a Lagos-based analyst, Mr. Jᴏɪᴜ Aᴊɪṕᴏ, said, "We have not yet been told the reasons for we have been told." He said, and I quote, "Generally, it is not a bad thing to increase the budget, provided the basis for the increase is good for the nation's economy." That's for Mr. Jᴏɪᴜ Aᴊɪṕᴏ. We also have here, it will reduce ultimate size of fiscal deficit. That's Mr. Tajudeen Olayinka said that since the average naira exchange rate is currently above 800 naira, and that only an improvement in dollar liquidity can get it to trade below 800 naira per dollar. It follows, therefore, that the adjustment by the National Assembly will only increase naira component of the federation account, and by extension, the projected revenue of the federal government.
Can't mix it, never.
Thereby reducing the ultimate size of the fiscal budget.
Definitely, the deficit is going to go up, so we have to do more borrowing. With the benchmark for the budget is for crude, I think it's about $70 per barrel. Let's just continue to pray that does not even fall below that benchmark, and we're going to run into serious trouble. But the sad part of all of this, Sandra, is that look, we're going to have more deficits, we're going to have to do more borrowings, but what will happen is that there's going to be priority on financing all of this recurrent expenditure, not on capital. So what will eventually happen is that look, they will focus on recurrent expenditure, which has to deal with their own comfort, luxury, and all of that, and capital expenditure will now suffer. So when we are now looking at our budget performance index, you discover that we've performed poorly more in the area of capital expenditure, which has to do with the people, really. Roads, electricity, and all those kind of things that can really impact the people. But on recurrent expenditure, they will capture it, at least with whatever comes in. But capital expenditure, I'm sure that we cannot do up to 30% performance.
All right. Well, as we wrap things up on trends in the papers for the morning, the increase in cover prices for papers, the reason is based on manufacturing cost of production. Basically.
Sandra, we import papers. Our paper mills are all closed shop.
So newspapers now, all newspapers now, their
they
prices,
import these papers, Sandra. These papers, they import them. We don't. All the paper mills are all closed shop in Nigeria.
That's quite unfortunate. All right, well, that is as regards that. NPAN announces change in newspaper cover prices. You can get details on page 6 of The Guardian. You can also get details on page 33 of Vanguard newspaper as well. Still on trends in the papers, we have here, of course, fresh killings in Plateau. It hasn't.
So on Friday, 3 persons were killed again on Friday.
And it's not just Bokos. Mangu is now also unfortunately in the mix. All right. As we also have stories on the front page of the Punch. New Year, tackle economic hardship, Nigerians tell federal government. And the story, of course, is on pages 2 and 45 of the Punch newspaper. We also have above the masthead of the Punch, Port Harcourt refinery begins test run, 12 states to get supplies soon. What? That's a good one. Should we celebrate?
Test run where?
Port Harcourt refinery begins test run.
When you say Port Harcourt refinery, which is it, the old or the new? And then you have to ask yourself, what kind of test run are we talking about? It's just test run.
Is it of refining?
Or what? Or the equipment that have been installed?
Okay, let's find out. So what we have is that the NNPCL has commenced the supply of crude for test running of the Port Harcourt refinery. Oil marketers confirmed the development and stated that the plant will supply PMS, otherwise known as, and automotive gas, diesel as well, to 12 states, which includes Abia, Rivers, Akwa Ibom, and Delta.
From the Port Harcourt refinery.
From the Port Harcourt refinery.
With the countdown, we are on that countdown. When?
They didn't give a deadline. Sorry.
2024.
They just said 2024.
What month? What quarter?
So it could be,
December 2024.
It could be December 2024. I just have here that this is to announce to Nigerians that in fulfillment of our pledge to complete phase 1 of the Port Harcourt
the phase 1, the old refinery.
Yes, by the end of 2023 and the subsequent streaming of phase 2 in 2024, we happily announce the mechanical completion of FLAIR startup on December 20th. There's no deadline, there's no timeline as to when we are to expect these things, but the 12 states are listed here. The NNPCL, which is the manager of the refinery, has also revealed that the second phase of the facility will be completed in the 4th quarter.
That's December, right? Of 2024.
So that's it. I'm sorry I brought that up.
I don't want to start my year this way. I was hoping that
I apologize. It's okay. Yeah, it's my fault.
But again, it is what it is. We've started again.
Let's take a break. let's take a break now. We'll be back by 8:40 for Mainland Focus. Don't forget that we're live all through our program, so you can drop your comments as well. My name is Omopola Sandra. Fuad Sahid is here as well. This is Mainland 98.3 FM. We'll take a break and we will be right back.
When the airwaves in your market become more and more crowded, it's time to break it open and really stand out. Broken Air is here.
On Mainland 98.3 FM, the sound of Lagos. Lagos.